Detroit Lions 47, Cowboys 9.
Why would you want old man Derrick Henry when you can get the youth of Zeke Elliott, a whole year younger than him?
I feel like we wasted 3 minutes talking about Zeke Elliott the other day, but then you watch his 8 carries in this game, and I feel like it was warranted, right? I feel like we're in this like golden age of 1-2 punches at running back. We're going to talk about the Falcons with Bijan and Algier in a minute. We were just talking about the Bucs and what they did with Sean Tucker, undrafted free agent, and Bucky Irving, and how difficult those dudes were to tackle. Handing the ball off to Zeke Elliott 8 times is a big waste.
Yeah.
The real story here, though, the Lions' dominant fashion, the Aiden Hutchinson injury, being out for the season with his broken leg. Let's start from the Lions' perspective here and just how dominant this game was.
Yeah, I mean, they were crushing. Like Detroit's offense having production against Dallas's defense was not a massive shock. I think we kind of expected that to be the case. How dominant they were maybe was a bit of a surprise, and the big thing for Dallas is that they had no kind of answer on the other side of the ball at all. Like, this was a potential shootout game, but only one side came equipped with ammunition.
We predicted the shootout, right? We predicted Dallas should be able to hang, right?
Yeah.
They should be able to make some plays down the field, similar to Seattle. Like, I was picturing this Seattle-like game where the Lions controlled that game, but Seattle kept punching back, making plays in the pass game, and Dallas just didn't have that either.
No, they didn't. They just didn't have the equipment to deal with it. Like, the Lions' offense was basically unstoppable. I love how hard they were trolling, whether it's the NFL or the Cowboys or both, with the Dan Skipper stuff.
The officials.
Yeah, like was he eligible, was he not? Very first play, Dan Skipper was eligible. The very last play, Dan Skipper was eligible. He was also lined up as a true wide receiver at times, which we suggested going into the game. They also threw a target, not to him in the red zone, but to Taylor Decker, the other offensive tackle.
Well, they ran Decker's touchdown that got negated last year.
They ran a hook and lateral to Penei Sewell, the play that I've been calling for, admittedly with Mailata, but I think you called it out for Sewell as well. You run a quick pass to a wide receiver and then lateral it to the giant rugby background offensive lineman and let him rumble, and that was negated as well. They also had Dan Skipper.
Look at this, the pitch to Sewell.
Oh, such a good play.
Look at this, he keeps his balance and reaches for the end zone, but there was a procedural penalty.
Negated for illegal man downfield.
He's probably down with the forearm. It doesn't matter.
That was a classic.
Dan Skipper's playing receiver.
That was a classic rule of cool play where it just should have stood, right? Like, it's illegal man downfield is one of those penalties where you can call it or you can let it slide. Should have let it slide.
It is one if you go back and look at some, like, there are plays where there's linemen 5 yards downfield sometimes.
I mean, in the world of RPOs, it's a very fuzzy line now. Like, you can call that a lot more if you want to. And
it's also tricky because you could be engaged in downfield, but there was one in the Giants-Bengals game last night where, like, the tackle was engaged and then just, like, came off the block. He didn't even block anybody, but it was a yard downfield and they called it. Anyway, they were trolling hard with all that. They also had Dan Skipper out there on all the kneel downs. Like, they were making a point. And I love that. I can't remember if I did say this on Thursday, but when I was talking about a couple weeks ago when the Bengals were trolling Mahomes and the Chiefs are kind of, talking trash and everything, I'm like, don't do that. You don't do that against the greats, right? That was the Anthony Smith, the safety from the Steelers back in 2007, making comments about the Patriots. Like, the Patriots with Tom Brady and Randy Moss were good enough to say, you made comments this week, we're going to attack you specifically and make you look bad. With a throwback pass, with a red zone pass, we're going to make you look bad. Like, we're good enough to do that. I think Mahomes and the Chiefs are good enough to, like troll the Raiders when they play them this year because of what happened this offseason. The Lions are good enough now with all these playmakers. They're good enough to just play games with Dan Skipper and have some fun while laying it on what's supposed to be another NFC contender. That might be the most impressive thing, is that's how good the Lions are right now. That and this Ben Johnson offense. It is unbelievable how many fast guys they just have running open through the secondary. Jameson Williams with more big plays.
Huge game.
Almost forget that they have Khalif Raymond, who used to be their one big play threat before they added Jameson Williams, before they added Sam Laporta. But they had Sam Laporta with the 52-yard trick play. You have David Montgomery, with an incredible touchdown run weaving through the defense. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like every week I'm a broken record listing off the good players that the Lions have, and they all have something special about them. A shiftiness, a speed element, a power element of a David Montgomery, and all of that combined makes this the most beautiful offense to watch in the league.
It is nuts. And I think to a degree, the trolling thing, I think for a coach like Ben Johnson and for a team like the Lions, I think that actually sparks creativity. Like, I think being motivated to, like, what's the best way we can come up with of, like, trolling the Cowboys or the officials. Like, I think that actually sparks some of this, like, genuine creativity and dialing up cool things that you wouldn't do otherwise. Like, it's not a bad thing or a distraction. I think it's actually a spark. It's a catalyst to creating some more interesting plays that wouldn't have been there otherwise. But yeah, so on the one hand, phenomenal job by Detroit. Like, that offense, the speed, the devastation that those playmakers can bring to the table is insane. On the other hand, massive indictment of this Dallas defense, which was awful. And like, so there's the Jameson Williams, his touchdown where that was a really good example of it, where he was the point guy on a like a bunch formation. Those are usually the guys that get jammed and effectively either disrupted or straight removed from the play by the corner, right? Dallas's defense, and Trayvon Diggs in particular, got whooped off the line. And the point guy ends up going all the way past him, smokes him off the line, and outruns him all the way for a touchdown. That, A, shouldn't happen, and B, I think is a good play to sort of highlight, yeah, look, Detroit were making plays, and you got to give them credit, but this Dallas defense rolled over and died as well. Like, they were a big part of this by how badly they played.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas they have issues. I mean, part of the reason, this was my other prize picks projection that went well, David Montgomery more than his rushing total, because I'm like, hey, they're going to run all over the Cowboys. The Lions had almost 500 total yards. The Cowboys just didn't get better this offseason. Again, I don't want to harp on the Zeke thing, but
I mean, forget Zeke. Broaden it to the backfield. It's the worst backfield in the NFL, and their inability to get spark from anybody.
I'm gonna widen it further, right? Every player that touches the football for the Lions, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, I cannot give them enough credit because they went through, handpicked these guys, and including Tim Patrick, by the way. As I said yesterday, I can't believe the league let the Lions get Tim Patrick, who had 3 catches for 68 yards. But they went through, and each person on that offense has a purpose, right? We haven't even talked about co-worker Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 catches for 37 and a score as well. Each person has a specific role in that offense, right? Speed, mismatch ability, route running, shiftiness, after the catch ability. They all have something or multiple traits that they bring to the table. Running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers included. And then for the Cowboys to have just Zeke Elliott as their backup running back and wasting those plays where the guy can't go anywhere. Again, not to harp on that, it's just the team building effort where the Lions have everybody specific. In the Cowboys, they had CeeDee Lamb, who's awesome, and Brandon Cooks, who's injured, and Jalen Tolbert might be developing, but you just don't see that level of depth on Dallas's team. And I think they had the ability to do it. They have the ability to do that and build that team. But they completely ignored the backfield. It would be interesting if they did actually go after Derrick Henry this offseason. And they had that in their bag, Dallas. In their bag, they had certain games where they could go Derrick Henry for 25 carries. I don't know if they even wanted to do that. I don't know if Mike McCarthy wants to do that. I don't know. But it would have been interesting to see if they could do it. But the team building effort between the Lions and the Cowboys felt like night and day coming out of this.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think a big indictment of Dallas is that backfield. Broadening beyond Zeke Elliott, there is nobody in that backfield that provides any kind of juice. And this is a landscape where those players are everywhere. Like, part of the reason running backs are not a massively valuable position is because it's so easy to find them. Like, the 49ers are down, McCaffrey goes down, and oh, look, Jordan Mason, who nobody's ever heard of, is cooking, right? Look at Miami. There's just endless speed backs that provide juice anytime somebody goes down. Like, it is not hard to find a running back that can come in and go, oh, look what we found. Look at this guy. Dallas have nobody in that backfield that does that at all. And it's happening at the same time where the offensive line is starting to disintegrate now from, its heyday, where it was just this endless run of first-round draft picks, all of whom were playing like all pros, right? It was the best offensive line in football, Hall of Famers left, right, and center. Now you've got this group where rookie left tackle, Tyler Guyton, struggles. Terrence Steele after
Guyton missed the game,
right? Generally,
injury,
yeah,
of course.
Terrence Steele isn't the same player he was before injury, and is now something of a liability at right tackle. Cooper Beebe at center, another rookie, might be one of their best players now. Zach Martin, a Hall of Famer, one of the best offensive linemen of the last 20 years, looks like he's now if not done, then very firmly on the downswing of his career, definitely declining. It's gone from being the best offensive line in the NFL and maybe one of the best of all time at its peak to now this group is actually problematic more often than not.
Yeah.
And that coincides with, and there's nobody in the backfield that can offset that because it's a bad group. So there's no run game. Dak Prescott's got to do it all on his shoulders. And we talked before about Dak Prescott, I think, is one of the more susceptible quarterbacks in the NFL to changes in his supporting cast. Well, his supporting cast is a lot worse than it used to be. Maybe not in receiving core, but the line in the backfield is terrible right now.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up to mind, again, I just want to compliment Brad Holmes and the team-building effort by the Lions. As the Cowboys needed to fill two starting spots on their offensive line, left tackle and center this offseason, the Lions had the best offensive line and then added Kevin Zeitler to the mix at guard, right? They already had 4 out of 5 solidified spots with probably the best top 4 offensive linemen of any team in the league, and then added a good solid Kevin Zeitler at guard. I mean, everything that the Lions did. Lions had defensive line issues. They get they get DJ Reader next to Alim McNeil, right? I mean, they had secondary issues. They draft and add talent there. So there's just so much that the Lions have done well these last couple of years.
Unfortunately, though, that brings us to maybe the biggest takeaway from this game, which is, Detroit won handily, looked great doing it, but it was incredibly costly because Aiden Hutchinson breaks his leg on a freak play, already had surgery, he's going to be done for the year, and a guy that was stringing together a defensive player of the year kind of season isn't there anymore.
Yeah, that was a tough loss. Hutchinson looking unbelievable this year. He'll be the league leader in pressures for another week or two. That's how far ahead he has. They had a bye week. He'll still be the leader for another week or two, and that's how good he's been. And then, freak injury to break his tibia.
Such a freak injury. I mean, he injured himself on a sack. Like, he was getting Dak Prescott. His leg just sort of whipped around and collided, I think, with his own, I think it was Alim McNeil, his leg hit off of. And it was like those MMA injuries where leg kick gets checked by shin, and it's shin on shin, and then one shin just gives. And his leg just whipped around, cracked into Alim McNeil's shin, and just snapped.
J.J. Watt was upset.
Yeah, horrible injury for him. Really sad for him to go down like that. And now, I mean, there's a few things. We're going to see, I think, this team-building exercise for Detroit. Like, they went from having a good pass rush with Aiden Hutchinson effectively getting more pressure than any pass rusher in the NFL this season individually, to suddenly, I think this is a problematic group without him there.
Even if he was there, I think they probably needed help on the edge anyway.
So now you get into, do they make a move? Like, is this a team where Detroit thinks this is a big enough blow that we need to go and trade for somebody?
So I think I want to get into this in more detail on Wednesday. I think we'll have a guest to go through it. Might have Rick Spielman. We'll see. To go through potential trade options for the Lions. I mean, I don't want to move on quickly to that. Like, our very upsetting watching Hutchinson, who's so fun to watch, has been so durable, played a ton of snaps these last couple of years, and he's the heart and soul of that Lions defense. And then from a week-to-week standpoint, we said there's so many games where he's the only guy, right? He's the guy with 10 pressures and no one else has more than 3. Even if he was healthy, Lions fans have been asking for Max Crosby for 2 years from the Lions. And we'll show you something a little bit later where Max Crosby might be a little upset with the Raiders right now. Something's going on over there. So that, I don't know if that could potentially be in play if the Raiders just want to blow everything up.
Hassan Reddick just hired a new agent, Drew Rosenhaus, to fix it all.
As we've been live here, yeah, Hassan Reddick, and he's got Drew Rosenhaus. They're in New York, New Jersey, talking to the Jets, trying to get Hassan Reddick back on the field.
Reddick, whose holdout was such a bad idea that his own agency fired him.
Yes.
You don't tend to see that.
You don't tend to see that. Man, you're costing us a lot of money. We're out of here. So yeah, I think there's trade options to discuss for the Lions. People wanted Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson together anyway, so that's going to be going full steam ahead. We'll try to get to some more logistical options as well.
Crosby, I don't think wants any part of being out of the Raiders, by the way. Like, I believe him he's got
just pushing a coach yesterday.
He's got that Raiders tattoo. He's, hashtag Raiders Nation for life. I believe
Yeah,
Max
but
Crosby,
you can have a tattoo. You're once a Raider, always a Raider. Like, again, Bruce Gradkowski is invited to every Raiders event every offseason. Our friend Bruce.
Like, I believe Max Crosby when he says that he wants to be a Raider. Like, he wants to be nowhere else. He wants to be a Raider for life. I believe Crosby in a way that I don't believe other players when they say things like that. He, I think, absolutely wants to be in Las Vegas and be a Raider and doesn't want to go anywhere else.
Anything else on Hutch and his injury?
Just horrible for him. Again, he'd been having an incredible season. It's a ridiculous freak injury for it to happen. Just a bummer for him, bummer for the Lions as well. It's an incidental point, but it's a shame that we don't get to see him against better offensive tackles. He's had this ridiculous run of substandard offensive linemen, and his season ends before we get to see what it would look like against better players. He's had the occasional snap where he's gone to the other side and rushed against better players, but by far the majority of his work this year has been done against basically backups, even with chip help and alignment and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a bad situation for everybody. Like Hutchinson, the Lions, anyone interested in what his season would look like over the full 17 games, just sucks.
One other shout out from this game: Brian Branch, 2 interceptions. The one in the end zone against Dak Prescott, where he was supposed to cover the flat, reads it with depth. Dak thinks he's going to cover the flat, and Branch just pulls off and picks it off. Really nice job. I don't know if he baited him exactly, but that's how you play. You play high to low, read the quarterback, go up and make the play. Also has a forced fumble in there. So 2 picks and a forced fumble. Basically, the Lions have all my favorite players. So I love the Lions. They're my favorite team of all time as far as the accumulation of players that the Lions have. That has to be it. Because I thought Brian Branch should have been picked in the top 10. And he was drafted in the second round by the Lions last year.
I've said, last week sometime that I'm on a pretty impressive run of L's in terms of draft takes, but Brian Branch is one that I will claim as a win. Like, I thought that guy was a ridiculously good player, and I couldn't believe that he slid to the second round, basically because we ran a slow 40.
Yeah.
That guy can play anywhere in your secondary and will upgrade the position.
Oh, yeah. You ranked him as a corner. You were like, he can play corner. He can do it all. I believe it. Lions play the Vikings next week. They go to Minnesota. 4-1 Lions against the 5-0 Vikings. One last stat we have to pull out there. I've seen a few different
versions of it. Yeah.
Versions of. I saw it first from Ben Solak, though. The NFL leader in point differential is the Minnesota Vikings at +61. Then the Detroit Lions at +60. The Bears at +47, and the Packers at +41. That's every team in the NFC North has a better point differential than every other team in the league.
Yeah, and Schefter tweeted that the NFC North is now the first division since realignment, 2002, where all 4 teams have at least 4 wins through 6 weeks.
It's impressive. I mean, we thought that the AFC and the NFC North would be the 2 best divisions in football. AFC North has underwhelmed. The NFC North has been, as advertised, even better than advertised. Something's got to give next week, though. Lions and Vikings going head to head.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be a very good game, a very good test, I think, for both teams. As we say, sadly, the Lions will be without Aiden Hutchinson, but man, really impressive division. So thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.